Hey guys, this is Mr. H. Hey, I wanted to go over how to use the quadratic formula and the TI-NSPIRE to solve quadratic equations. And what you see on the screen is the actual quadratic formula from the formula sheet that you get when you're taking the Algebra 1 Regents. So they give you this formula because they don't want you to memorize it. They expect you to know how to use it. So let's see here. It says x equals a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all of that divided by 2a. You've got to know how to use the formula, so I'm going to do about 4 or 5 examples. One of the things that you should be doing is you should be working along with me. So that means you need a graphing calculator. Secondly, that means when I put up a problem, you should stop the video and try to do it on your own and then compare to see what you get and what I've gotten. All right, so I'm going to do about 4 or 5 problems. All right, first one, it says solve x to the nearest tenth for the quadratic equation x squared plus x minus 5 equals 1. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to write this as 1x squared plus x, 1x minus 5 equals 0. Very first thing I'm going to do is this is a, so this is going to be a equals 1. This is b, so this is going to be b equals 1. And this is c, so c equals a negative 5. Now, we're going to use a quadratic formula. So I'm just going to write x equals a negative b. Oops, I'm going to put a negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times a negative 5 over 2 times 1. So basically all I've done is I've put in the numbers where the variables and constants would go. Now, but now I don't want you to actually do this. I want you to use the calculator, and this is what we're going to do. So we're going to store those numbers. So 1, we're going to store it into A. And then 1, we're also going to store into B. And then C is a negative 5. So we're going to store negative 5 into C. And then we're going to press enter. Now, once those numbers are stored, we're going to use the quadratic formula. So we're going to need a fraction. Stack fraction, so this is going to be a negative b plus. Now we don't have a plus or minus key, so I'm going to do a plus, and then I'm going to show you how to do the minus. All right, and then we're going to do the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and then I'm going to put that all over 2a. Now I'm doing this intentionally. But you're going to get this variable message if you enter it just like I entered it. And the reason is this AC, the calculator thinks that you're trying to create a new variable, the AC variable. And that's not what we want. This is supposed to be A times C. So all we have to do is just copy this and then change that, put the multiplication sign in between those letters, and then we're good. And then I press enter. Now, so basically this is taking all of those numbers that I store and it calculates the solution. So we're supposed to round this to the nearest tenth. So this would be $1.80. Now to find the other solution, because this one has 2, all I would do is copy this, and then I'm just going to go over and I'm going to change the plus to a minus. So delete and minus, press enter. And my other answer is a negative $2.80. So if you go and you look at what I've written on my answer sheet, this would be 2 points. I rounded to the nearest tenth. I used the quadratic formula, and we're good to go. All right, so let's do another one. This one is also a quadratic. 4w squared plus 12w minus 44 equals 0. They say solve it algebraically. All that means is use a quadratic formula, and then they want you to round it to the nearest hundredths place. So again, the A term is the leading coefficient, and then B is the middle term, and then C is the constant. And again, we need to go ahead and write this. So this is going to be a negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared minus 4 times a negative 44. So I'm just replacing those letters, and then this is 2 times 4. Now, again, we're not going to use this. We're going to actually use the calculator, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start by storing 4 into A. And then I'm going to store 12 into B. And then I'm going to store a negative 44 into C. So let me do that real quick. Boom, that's done. Now I can just go up here since I've already entered this into the calculator and just copy this because this is a quadratic formula. And then I press enter and it tells me that one of the answers, I'm rounding it to a nearest hundred. So it's going to be a negative $5.14. Now, if I want to find the other root, I just take this, copy it, and I'm going to change that minus outside the quadratic to a plus. So delete this, make it a plus, press enter. So the other answer is $2.14. So if I go to my iPad to show you what I've written, I took all the coefficients and constants, I plugged those in, and then I used the calculator to calculate what the two answers are. And that's it. That's absolutely it. Okay, now let's go. Let's do another, got a couple more I wanted to do. Now, this is there's two things that's different. First of all, in order to use a quadratic formula, this needs to be equal to 0. So the way that you would do that is you would subtract 75 from both sides. So you're going to have 4x squared minus 80 equals 0. All right, now we can use a quadratic formula. Now, one more thing. This means when it says exact value, that means they don't want any decimals. They want it to be a fraction or they want it to be an integer. No decimals allowed. If you look back over at our last example, you saw we had decimals, 5.14, 2.14. They don't want decimals in this one. So now, when it says exact value, the only thing we need to look at is we need to look at the b squared minus 4ac part to see what that looks like. But let's go ahead and I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So let's go ahead and get the coefficients and constants. So the a for this is going to be 4. Now notice there is no x term. So we would say b is equal to 0. It's not, b is not equal to negative 80. B is equal to 0 because there's no x term. And c, which is the constant, is going to be a negative 80. Now that we've got these, we're going to look at this part, b squared minus 4ac. Now, if this is a perfect square, we're good to go. We'll just use the calculator. But if it's not a perfect square, we've got to leave that number as a square root because it's going to be irrational and we don't want any decimals. So if that doesn't make sense, just watch what I do. So I'm going to go to the calculator and I'm going to do 4 and I'm going to store that. I'm going to store 4 and I'm going to store it into A, just like the last problem. And then I'm going to store 0 for the B term since there's no X term. And then I'm going to put in a negative 80 for C. So store into C, press enter, boom. Now normally we would have this b squared minus 4ac. And if that is a perfect square, we don't get decimals, but if it isn't a perfect square, we're going to get decimals. They're going to be irrational, just like these two answers. So all we have to do is just check it. So let's go. We're going to do b squared minus 4 times a times c. Press enter. Dang it. I hate when I'm thinking I'm doing something I'm not. So let's do it again. So it's going to be b squared minus 4 times a times c. Press enter. Now, so that's what goes on. That's the number that would be inside the square root. Now, the question is this a perfect square? Is 1280 a perfect square? If you don't know, just take the square root and see. So if I take the square root of 1280, what is that? Oh, that's a decimal. So that's not a perfect square, which means we're going to leave this as it is because we don't want decimals in the answers. So if we go back to my answer sheet, here's what we're going to have. We're going to have x is equal to B is 0, plus or minus. And then inside of here, that's this part, which we said is 1280. So we're going to put 1280 in there, and we're not going to calculate it because we don't want decimals. And then at the very bottom is going to be 2 times 4, which is going to be 8. So your final answer should be something like this, plus or minus the square root of 1280 over 8. You don't have to simplify it. You don't have to simplify the radical. You don't have to simplify the fraction. You can just leave it like this. This is exact. This is an exact answer. So that's how you would do it. You just need to check the b squared minus 4ac part. If it says exact, that's what you check. If that's not a perfect square, then you're just going to leave whatever, you're going to leave that as whatever number you've computed. I'm going to do one more example. Hopefully this will make it clear. So this one says, solve 6x squared minus 42 equals 0 for the exact value. So we see that word again. I'm going to put this in red. Exact values of x. So let's go. A is 6. B, since there's no x term, is going to be 0, just like the last problem. And C, the constant is a negative 42. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to check b squared minus 4ac to see what that number is. So we got to store first. I'm going to do menu 15, get rid of this. And then I'm just going to do 6, store into A. And then 0, store into B. And then a negative 42, store that into C. Press enter. And what do we have here? We have, now all we got to do is go b squared. Where is it? B squared minus 4 times A times C. Is that a perfect square? Well, if you're not sure, just take the square root of it and see if you get a bunch of decimals. And we do. So this is not a perfect square, so we're just going to leave this number. So if I go back to my answer sheet, I'm going to say x equals 0, a negative 0 plus or minus, and this is going to be 1008 over 2 times 6, which is 12. So our final answer is just going to be plus or minus the square root of 1008 over 12. Leave it just like this. Don't change anything. Don't change anything. All right. Now I'm going to do one more question. This is going a little longer than I wanted, but I want you guys to see this question. All right. So here, now I've got, this question is, they've given us two functions. One's a quadratic and one's a linear. So it says g of x is equal to 2x squared plus 3x plus 10. And then the other function is 2x plus 16. They said, solve the equation gx equals 2 times k of x algebraically for x to the nearest 10th. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to actually set this up. We're going to do 2x squared plus 3x plus 10. And then we're going to do 2 times k of x. So we're going to do 2 times the 2x plus 16. Because that's what k of x is. And then we're going to distribute. So this is going to be 4x plus 32. And then we're going to have 2x squared plus 3x plus 10. Now we want to use the quadratic formula, but the only way that we can use the quadratic formula is everything has to be on the left-hand side. So I'm going to subtract a negative 4x and minus 32. And this is going to be 0, which is what we need. And this is going to be 2x squared minus 1x minus 22. So now we can use the quadratic formula. A is going to be 2, B is going to be a negative 1, and C is going to be a negative 22. And then I'm just going to enter this into the quadratic formula. So let's go. We go here. We got 2. The leading coefficient is 2, so we're storing that into A. Oops. 2, we're storing that into A. Boom. And then we got a negative 1, and we're storing that into B. And then we got negative 22, and we're storing that into C. Press enter. We got it. Now we're just going to enter the quadratic formula. So we got a fraction, and then we got a negative b plus the square root of b squared. So we got b squared here, minus 4 times a times c over 2a. And then you press enter. So it says that one of the answers, and we're supposed to round this to the nearest tenth, so this would be $3.60. And then to find the other solution, we just make this a minus. And then we go. And that's going to be a negative $3.10. Now, here's something that I also want you guys to see. You can always check these by using the insolve. All right, so let me show you that, and then I'm going to wrap this up. So they gave us two functions. Let's go back so that we can see that. They gave us two functions, g of x and k of x. So what we're going to do is we're going to define those. So let's go menu 15, get rid of all this stuff. So if you do menu 11, that's going to be a define, and then we're just going to type in the 2x squared. We're going to type in the 2x squared. Where are you? 2x squared plus 3x plus 10. And we've defined that one. Oh, we got a syntax error. Where is it? Where's my syntax error? I don't know. Where's my syntax error? Okay, let me try this again. Let's do this again. So control clear, menu 11. Boom. And then we're gonna go 2x squared plus 3x plus 10. And then we press enter. And I'm getting a syntax error again. Why? What's happening? It's trying to tell me something. Oh, it's telling me I didn't define the function. So I'm supposed to have g of x equals, and then I press enter, my bad. And then we're going to define it again. We're going to do menu 11. And then we're going to define the k of x. That's the k of x equals 2x plus 16. And then we press enter, that's defined. Now we're just going to use insolve, menu 31, and we're going to put in g of x. G of x is equal to k of x. And then, oh, actually it's not k of x, it's 2 times k of x. Oh, I almost messed that up. And then comma, and then the x variable, and it tells us. So that's a negative $3.10. That was one of our solutions. And if we want to find the other one, we would just copy it, and we would go equals 100. And let's see what we get now. Boom, 357. All right, so those are our two answers. Good to go. I'm going to stop this because this is definitely a little longer than I planned, but I hope this is helpful, has been helpful.